The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. Yeah!
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to try to predict the future. So I'm going to kind of play Nostradamus, or if I'm incorrect, the Great Carmack. Whichever prediction lands, I think I'll take. And hopefully the prediction isn't as bad as we're going to make it here. But this is kind of what I'm looking at when you're projecting for the 2022 season. Pool Service Pro. Open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro. When you do any kind of future prediction, of course you're going to look at the past to see where things lined up. And if we look at the real mess of the season that 2021 was, with the shortages, with the high inflation, with the prices kind of rising during the season and getting to levels that we've never seen before, you can kind of predict what's going to happen in 2022. And I think a safe bet or a safe prediction would be that these price increases are not going to go down. And in fact, you may even see higher price increases throughout the 2022 season. And I think this is because of many factors. Many will point to the fact that the factory that burned down in Louisiana that produced the Trichlor Tablets was kind of the catalyst for the price increase in 2021. I would say that's one factor. You know, the BioLab factory was the only major producer of trichlor. It was making about 2 million pounds a year, according to the media. And this should be rebuilt and back online in May of 2022. And if you kind of figure things out by the calculations here, by giving you a date of May or June, then there's no production going on for 2022, obviously, because it takes a while to produce it and get them out on the shelves. And so I think realistically, that factory is not going to be producing tablets in 2022. And also, according to Bob Lowry, who ran a chemical company in the past, he mentioned that the new regulations with the EPA may actually limit their production or slow them down to where they can't produce what they were doing in the past before the factory burned down and they had to rebuild it using the standard EPA codes. And it's a real mess. And I think if you want to go even further back, the trichlor production kind of was withering out all over the country. Factories were not producing. And then with the tariffs, and whether you agree with them or not, they cause anyone trying to import tablets from overseas to pay 45% on that. And then, of course, you add in the high cost of shipping from overseas, where the shipping rates went from maybe $4,000 or $2,000 to $10,000 or $12,000. And so the price, if you were going to even import them, would probably be more than what you would pay for something made domestically. Of course, there's no one producing them domestically, really, except for that BioLab factory that burned down. And this started a chain reaction in the fact that you couldn't find tablets, the price went up. And currently, right now, they're about $200 retail for a 50-pound bucket of tablets. The season is basically over, and the tablets are still at $200 a bucket. That kind of indicates something is going to kind of carry over into 2022, because we're right here in November, and the prices have not gone down. And the general trend for everything, of course, is going up. If you look back, I'll use California as an example because this is where I live. Yay. Anyway, California, we definitely have our own set of issues besides the higher prices for chemicals. And I would say, if you look back in 2002, the minimum wage was $6.75. In January of 2022, it's going to go up to $15, and in some areas up to $17.50. And this is just the minimum wage for someone to flip burgers, work at Walmart or Target, although they're probably paying more than minimum wage to kind of keep people because of the labor shortage. And I think, of course, I'm not against a living wage, but however, the logic here that paying someone $15 an hour is not going to cause the price of the burgers and fries and the special to go up, or cause the cost of the stuff at Walmart to go up, or they cause other wages to rise to keep your employees. And so everyone's going to be making more money because $15 an hour is pretty good. But if you're already making $15 an hour doing something that requires a college degree or something like that, they're going to boost you up to keep you because then you can just get a job at Walmart. You see how the logic, how it kind of goes here. So everything's going to go up because of that fact of the higher labor costs. And then you top that off by the highest fuel cost ever. We reached that in November here, where gas topped $4.69 a gallon. And seeing gas for $5 for regular is not uncommon throughout most of Southern California. So my prediction for 2022 is kind of based on what's trending out there. And then, of course, all the media outlets are covering the high inflation. I think it was at 6.9%, which is the highest in over 30 years. So you add all that together, and you're coming off a 2021 season where we already saw incredible price increases of products that never really went up much, like the tablets. You can get them wholesale up until last season for like $78 for a 50-pound bucket, and you can go into Costco and buy a 40-pound or 45-pound bucket, for like $68, $70, and that, of course, those days are gone, are long gone. And if you look at the current prices, I'm going off of the retail prices so that you kind of can gauge how the price increase has really gone into effect. I mentioned that the tablets are selling for $200 retail right now, which will probably go up. I've heard some estimates as high as $250 for retail, maybe even $300, which would be really crazy. And then you have the Cal-Hypo, which is currently about $6 a pound, and typically you're only paying about $3.50, $4 a pound in the past. Muriatic acid is $10 for 1 gallon, which is pretty crazy if you consider that the magic acid before this hit was like $10 a gallon for the magic acid or acid magic, which was a specially blended formula that was deemed too expensive for most people. But now muriatic acid has reached that same price point, and it's just kind of, I can go on and on talking about the increases also in the price of equipment. If you look at the 2020 prices, you can get a good variable speed pump, a 2.7 or 3 horsepower one, and you can buy it retail for like $1,100. I think they're about $1,300 or $1,400 or even $1,800 now. And so the equipment has also gone up. Heaters are outrageously expensive. You can find them. And then the shortages may continue into 2022, and not for the same reasons that there was a shortage in 2021. I think that was more logistic. The companies weren't seeing how we were dependent on how dependent we were on tablets. And so even if you told them, hey, you need to produce twice as much chlorine, they probably didn't believe it or buy into it. And so they didn't have the production ramped up to the point where they needed to. And then I think the problem we're going to have in 2022 is that there's an odd shortage. Well, I guess it's not odd because it's been going on since early 2021. But there's a shortage of resin to make plastic. And the Cal-Hypo tablet company, Segura, had plenty of Cal-Hypo tablets for the 2021 season. But I heard from my sources there that they didn't have any buckets to put them in because they had a shortage of the buckets to put their chemicals in. And this could be a real problem because a lot of the granular chlorine, the tablets, of course, cyanuric acid, all these come in these chemical buckets. And if you look at these buckets, they say on there not to recycle them, which is kind of weird. And besides that, here in my area, all the recycling plants have closed. They're building apartments or whatever on the land. So even if you wanted to recycle them, there's nowhere to take them to. And they're running out of the plastic resin. I think one industry that you're going to see this effect are the pool builders, because the resin used to make the plastic Schedule 80 PVC is definitely not going to be available. And I think PVC plumbing shortages had started happening, during the deep freeze in Texas where all the pools were damaged. It'll probably continue into 2022 because of the fact that they can't make enough PVC plumbing. And this is going to definitely affect the chemical buckets. Now, I'm hoping that I'm wrong here and that they have plenty of plastic to make the buckets for the chemicals. But this could be an issue that will be developing in 2022 where they have plenty of chemicals, but they don't have any containers to put them in. And so what's my overall outlook for 2022? And I hope I'm wrong, but all the indicators are showing that I may not be. And when you're making predictions, it's not like you're going to predict like, hey, the Angels are going to win the World Series next year. There's really nothing that will substantiate that. They were a 500 team this year, and there's really nothing that's going to change dramatically that's going to make them World Series contenders for the World Series this year. And so my prediction is kind of based on 2021, where we had shortages, we had price increases, you were scrambling to find chlorine, and now this year, is all that back to normal? I don't think so. And so my prediction is that in 2022, there's going to be chemical shortages, maybe not for the same reasons, but for a lot of the same reasons. The fact that the Trichlor factory is not back online, which means that we're going to be leaning on other chlorine sources to compensate for the Trichlor. Also, the shortage of plastic may impact the buckets that we get our chemicals in. And then you have the higher labor costs, the higher transportation cost, the higher cost of all goods and services has not gone down. Inflation has gone up since the 2021 season ended. And so the indicators are that in 2022, what you're paying now, right now in November, maybe even higher when the season starts. So what can you do about it except kind of crawling into the corner in the fetal position and sucking your thumb? Well, there's some things you can do, obviously. It's not the end of the world. And I think complaining about it is probably the least that you want to do, or something that you want to avoid doing, because it's not going to be helpful. So think of some strategies. I think if you meet with your supplier and say, hey, how's it look for chlorine in 2022? How can I secure a good supply of it? And I think it would be logical to be buying certain items that aren't going to degrade. So if you can buy some tablets right now, the Trichlor Tablets, you can definitely get some of those. And if you're paying $200 a bucket retail, wholesale pricing is a little bit better. I mean, not hugely better, but if you think the price is going to go down and you're going to waste your money by buying too many, well, just don't buy too many. Just buy enough to kind of get you through if you need it, like an emergency supply. And don't buy the whole season's worth in case you're thinking the price may go down, or there may be specials, or there may not be a problem. But I would say buy some of those. Start stocking up on Cal-Hypo, which lasts for a couple of years. Dichlor would be a good alternative. And dichlor may come in handy because there's some grumbling or some indicators that there's going to be a cyanuric acid shortage next season, which means you may not be able to find conditioner to charge at the pools at the beginning of the season, or to add conditioner. So if you buy dichlor is like 60% cyanuric acid. It also has chlorine, of course, and so you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. So if you add 10 pounds of dichlor to a pool, you're of course adding about half of that in chlorine and half of that in cyanuric acid, or 5 or 6 pounds of cyanuric acid. So it may be something to pick up now and store, because the chlorine aspect may come in handy also. I would not stock up on liquid chlorine because the shelf life is not going to last you from now until the season begins. Muriatic acid, I've heard different things about the shelf life of that. If you can find some, I would suggest maybe getting some, but I wouldn't get the whole season supply of it because of different reasons, and you may have no problem getting it during the season. You may have problems getting it during the season. No one really knows exactly how the muriatic acid is going to be next season, but I wouldn't advise against getting some cases of muriatic acid to have them on hand. Basically, you want to have emergency rations for the summer, so I would start buying something now in the winter, even at the higher prices, because I don't think they're going to go down. If they go down, you've lost some money, but you have the chemicals, so it's not like a total loss. And if they don't go down in price and you don't have a lot of chemicals next season, at least you've kind of hedged your bets by having some in your warehouse or garage stocked up there. And I'll give you some practical things you can do to kind of stretch out the chlorine, which is probably the main thing you're going to worry about in 2022. And I'll start with something less practical, and then I'll give you some practical solutions. The less practical solution would be to add a saltwater generator to your clients' pools, or to sell those, or to get one for your own pool, mainly because of the price point of the saltwater generator. The funny thing is, in years past, I would always tell people, you're not going to save any money installing a saltwater generator. You're actually going to lose money based on the current price of chemicals. That was back before 2021. And I told them, look, you're going to spend $1,100 to $1,500 to put it in. And then every 4 or 5 years, you're going to need to get a new salt cell, which cost $500 or $600. Maybe some were upwards of $700 depending on the system. And a bucket of tablets is $100, so it's not like you're gonna save money on chemicals. And a gallon of chlorine is, $3. But all that's changed, and I would say that mathematically, a saltwater generator is still, of course, more expensive, but it's not like way more expensive, and it's not something that's out of the realm of possibility. The reason why I say it's impractical is because of the upfront cost of installing it. You can't really convince a lot of people that, you're going to sell them a bucket of tablets for $200, or you're going to sell them a saltwater generator for $1,500, and then a new salt cell 4 or 5 years down the road for another $500. However, it will produce chlorine and keep the chlorine in the pool, and it may be a solution for a lot of people out there who've been wanting to go with salt anyway because of different reasons, and now would be the time to get it. And of course, last season, saltwater generator sold out just about everywhere. I was waiting for a new Trichlor cell, and they told me I had to wait like 4 months, but Jandy took care of me, and I was able to get one a lot sooner. So I think if you wanted to go with salt, it's not a bad idea. It's still not going to save you any money, but it'll save you kind of the frustration and scrambling for chlorine. And that may be just enough for a lot of people that don't want to deal with all this and just bite the bullet and sell the saltwater systems to your customers or have one installed at your own pool. A more practical solution would be to add an enhancer to your pool. And there's 3 different ones that I would recommend. The first would be borates. The second would be a combination of phosphate removers and enzymes. And the third one would be PoolRx. And these are PoolRx. Also, you have the Frog and you have the Nature 2 mineral system. These are all great ways to stretch out the chlorine usage in your pool or make the chlorine last longer. I call them enhancers because they enhance the chlorine in the pool. They make it more effective and it stays in the pool longer. For borates, for example, maybe you were thinking that spending $90 on a 45-pound bucket of boric acid from due to diesel was too much money for you for the season to charge your 20,000-gallon pool. They're bringing it to 50 parts per million. If you have a smaller pool, it's going to cost you a little bit less. However, $90 for a 45-pound bucket of boric acid, that's going to make your chlorine last 30 to 40% longer in your pool. That's pretty good compared to the fact if you're going to buy, $200 worth of tablets or buy liquid chlorine at $20 a case or, all these other aspects, muriatic acid at $10 a gallon, because the boric acid will do, or the borates in the pool at 50 parts per million will do a number of things to make the chlorine last longer. They're an algistat, so algae is not going to grow in the pool. You're not going to need to spend money on any kind of algicide or shock. And they also keep the pH from rising too high or rapidly in the pool. So you're going to save money on chlorine and muriatic acid. You're not going to need algicides, or you're not going to need to shock your pool. All that translates into savings and making your pool care easier. The next one would be phosphate remover and enzyme, which is fairly inexpensive. You can buy the blended formula, or you can buy each of them individually, and this also will make the chlorine last a lot longer in the pool. The phosphate remover will ensure that algae is not going to grow in the pool, and the enzymes are going to make the chlorine more effective and last longer in the pool. And this is a good 1-2 punch that's really effective, and it's really cost effective. If you buy $30 or $40 worth of it every month or two, it's definitely going to supplement the cost of the chemicals that you would spend, the chlorine that you would spend, or any kind of algicide or any kind of shock you would put in the pool. And then the PoolRx or any kind of mineral system definitely enhances the chlorine because the minerals will prevent algae from growing, and it frees up the chlorine to be more effective in the pool. With something like the PoolRx for like $50 or $60, your chlorine usage generally drops in half. So if you were putting 2 tablets in the pool, you're going to put 1 tablet in. If you're using 1 gallon of liquid every week, you're going to use half a gallon of liquid chlorine. And it's definitely worth it because it's something that's going to save you on chemicals. And now it's definitely worth it more than ever because maybe the price point was prohibitive because chemicals are cheaper, chlorine was cheaper. Now that everything is more expensive and may get more expensive, looking at one of these enhancers may be something, if you haven't looked before or haven't thought about it, is something you probably want to do this season. And then, of course, leave it to Bob Lowry to come up with one more solution for you. And he mentioned this on a podcast I recently recorded, and that is keeping your free chlorine level at a higher level, 4 or 5 parts per million, and keeping it there. Once you get it to that point, keep it at that level. Don't let it drop below 4 or 5 parts per million. And this will eliminate algae in the pool, the need to shock your pool, the need to add an algicide to your pool. And once you have that residual at 4 or 5 parts per million, it's pretty easy to maintain it, especially if you're going to add the borates to your pool or use another enhancer. So keeping your free chlorine level at a consistent rate every week eliminates the need to shock your pool and buy, a 1 pound bag of Cal-Hypo for $6. When if you're just adding the maintenance dose of chlorine every week, keeping it up, you're going to actually save a lot more money than if the chlorine were to zero out and you have to add algicide and then shock your pool. So it's very logical, and I think that would work great also in a lot of situations. And I think one of probably the most practical things you can do is to pass the cost on to the customer. Now, I know that this is probably something that you started doing last season, but I think, again, another price increase, if necessary, is something that you're going to have to do. And everyone's familiar with everything going up in price. When I get anything in the mail, from my insurance down to anything, grocery shopping, everything has gone up. And it's like, what are you going to do? You can't not buy groceries. You can't not have insurance. And so you're just going to have to bite the bullet and pay for that. I called my insurance company just recently, Farmers, because my umbrella insurance went up by 40%, which is a pretty huge increase in kind of an add-on insurance thing. And I kind of joked with her about, what is there, a shortage of, umbrella insurance policies? But truth be told, I just think that everyone is raising prices. There's really no logical reason for something to jump 40%. That's just not even anything tangible except coverage. And I think that's just the way of everything going up. And so customers are going to be used to that price increase, and you're going to have to just send out another letter letting them know that the prices are going up again because your costs have gone up. And of course, if you have certain things that you're including in your service, like filter cleaning, salt cell cleaning, 3-inch tablets, those are going to have to come out of your weekly service or monthly service and be something added on to the customer. So if you've been buying the 3-inch tablets for the customer, they're going to have to absorb that cost now, and you're going to have to sell them a bucket of 25 pounds or 50 pound tablets. And of course, selling them an enhancer may save you that need to pass it on to the customer. So if they get borates in their pool, or if they're going to use the phosphate and enzyme or the Polar X, you may still be able to absorb the 3-inch tablet cost. But in most cases, you want to pass that on to your customer if you're not already doing that. And then, of course, filter cleaning should be something you charge extra for. Anything that could kind of supplement your income during the 2022 season is something that you want to do. And price increases is pretty much a no-brainer, and it happens everywhere, and people aren't flinching when the prices go up. Maybe 40% would be kind of high. That kind of got my attention. But everything else, I just kind of absorb it without calling or complaining. So that's my prediction for 2022. After the season, you can either call me Nostradamus or the Great Carmack, depending on how my prediction pans out. But I think either way you look at it, you have to prepare for the fact that things aren't going to be any different in a lot of ways in 2021. I hate to say that. And kind of plan now, because now we have an idea what it's going to look like because of what happened last season. And it would be kind of foolhardy not to plan and not to think ahead to what you're going to do next season, and take this time to get some strategies together, get some, buy some backup chemicals if you can, and kind of not sit on your laurels, take action, have a plan for your customers of how you're going to add an enhancer, charge them more for the service, just have some kind of game plan going into 2022. And if you're looking for other podcasts that I recorded, you can definitely go to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. On the banner, click on the podcast icon. That'll take you to the podcast site where you can listen to my previous podcast episodes. And if you're in the industry and you want to enhance your business, definitely check out my coaching program at poolguycoaching.com. A lot of great benefits for joining there, including a discount on your general liability insurance. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. Pool Service Pro. Open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro.